Hello, music fans. Here are 9 metal, rock, and prog albums that came out over the last week that I think you might enjoy. I'm going to talk about them in my order of preference and give my first impressions on them, starting with Frost. Life in the Wires is the name of the album, and it's the 5th album by this great band from the UK. Neo-progressive rock with some electronic, alternative, pop, and even some metal influences in there. Frost is a supergroup from the UK featuring Jem Godfrey, John Mitchell, who has been in It Bites, Arena, Asia, and more, and has a solo career known as Lonely Robot, Nathan King, who has performed with It Bites and more, and Craig Blundell, who has drummed on tour with Steven Wilson and Steve Hackett. Before this album, I've never listened to a full album by Frost, but I did love the singles that I heard ahead of this release. First, I heard Life in the Wires Part 1, and I loved it. Loved the rhythms in the intro in particular. And then it's the second track on the album. Then the album has as its second last track the part 2 of this, an almost 16-minute prog epic, Life in the Wires Part 2. Also a great track. The musicianship of the players on this album is excellent. The album is long. It's an hour and 25 minutes, but it has variety, and every song is solid, so it doesn't feel too long. Next up, and I'm going to put that one in my excellent tier. 2 of the albums from today will be in my excellent tier. Most are very good, but didn't quite make my excellent tier. The next one that made my excellent tier is DGM and their album Endless. This is the 12th album by this Italian band. It's progressive power metal, and I've never listened to an album by them before either, but I heard an early release single called The Great Unknown, which features violin. It sounded great. Added it to my list to check out. If you're a fan of bands like Evergrey and Dream Theater, I think you'll like this band. The album manages to be heavily inspired by 70s prog rock as well, while also being really accessible and catchy with pop hooks, but also having a bit of heaviness. But there's nothing extreme in the heaviness, though. It's very approachable. It's all clean vocals and catchy, but has a bit of the metal sound to it. So if that sounds good to you, check out DGM and Endless. Now we're getting into my very good tier, not quite in my excellent category, but still definitely worth checking out if you're interested. And first up there is Jerry Cantrell with I Want Blood, the 4th album by this American artist. Kind of alternative rock with some grunge and metal influences in there. Jerry Cantrell is the Alice in Chains guitarist and vocalist, of course, and I thought his album Self from 2021 was good, and I was hoping he would impress me even more with this one, and luckily he did. The opening track, Vilified, was my favorite on first listen. It has some great time signature changes between 7, 6, and 4 beats per bar. Jerry's voice is great. I like his guitar riffing too. The whole album sounds great and just consists of well-composed and executed songs, good production. Next up in my very good tier is Ensiferum and their album Winter Storm. This is the 9th album by this Finnish band, and it's melodic death metal, but has a lot of folk metal, symphonic, and power metal influences. And another band that I've never listened to an album by them before, but I did see that Jari Mainpa from Winter Sun used to be in this band, so that got me interested in checking them out because I do enjoy Winter Sun's music. And if you like Winter Sun, but you want to hear it with even more folk metal vibes and kind of more fun to it, I think you'll like this. I still kind of prefer Winter Sun, but if you like the more fun, happy sounding folk metal, I think Ensiferum could be a good one for you. And next up is Akphaezya and their album Fell Down the Veil, Anthologies 1, 3, and 5, the 3rd album by this French band. And they're avant-garde progressive metal. They've got jazz, experimental, and gothic metal in there. They're another band that I'd never listened to before this, and I heard the early release single Nauseating Blend, and I thought it was an interesting track. Very quirky female vocals in this band, Sounds a bit like Kate Bush singing over an avant-garde prog metal band. If that sounds good to you, definitely check out Akphaezya and Fell Down the Veil anthologies 1, 3, and 5. I'm putting that in my very good tier as well. Didn't quite make it to excellent. I think they do have potential and could make an excellent album in the future. So looking forward to what they do next. Next up is Frozen Crowns with their, or Frozen Crown, just singular crown, with their album War Hearts, the 5th album by this Italian band, and this is power metal. And I like their last album, Call of the North, from 2023, and I just think it's great to see 2 female guitarists in a metal band as well as a female vocalist. You don't see too many metal bands with 3 female members, so check it out if you like that. Also, if you're a fan of Dragon Force, it kind of sounds like Dragon Force to me, but with female vocals. Lots of cool fast guitars and powerful, catchy hooks. If you're a fan of power metal like Hammerfall, Sacred Oath, Twilight Force, or a fan of other female-fronted metal bands like Nightwish and Xandria, I think you'll like this. Check out Frozen Crown with War Hearts. Next up is an EP by Bon Iver called SABLE, the French word for sand. And it's an indie rock EP. And I'm a big fan of Bon Iver. I like all their stuff. They're kind of indie rock with folk, pop, and electronic influences. I'm putting this in my very good tier as well. I've loved every album they've made. One of my favorite indie rock bands. Every album they make sounds a little different than the last. And I really like the single from this EP, Speyside. I think that's the best track on the album after a couple listens. The whole EP continues this greatness, though, and is another great addition to their catalog. I just wish it was a full album. I think I'm putting it in my very good tier, but if they made a full album length of this quality material, it might have gone up to excellent. Next up is Blind Ego with their album The Hunting Party, the 5th album by this German band. It's neo-progressive rock with art rock, hard rock, and metal influences. This is a German band founded by Kale Wallner of RPWL, and I love the last RPWL album from 2023, Crime Scene. Check this album out if you're a fan of that. It's like a slightly harder and heavier version of that sound. RPWL is for fans of Pink Floyd, Yes, and the more atmospheric side of Porcupine Tree and Riverside. This album is closer to Porcupine Tree and Riverside than it is to Pink Floyd and Yes, and it has a little bit of heaviness, never gets too heavy. I wouldn't classify it as prog metal, but there's some of that influence in there. If that sounds good to you, check out Blind Ego and The Hunting Party. And last album that I want to mention for today's video is Kiko Loureiro and his album Theory of Mind, the 7th album by this amazing Brazilian guitarist. This is instrumental progressive metal. It's kind of got power metal, neoclassical metal, thrash metal, heavy metal, as well as some jazz fusion influences in there. Kiko was a member of Megadeth. He was a great guitar player in that. His guitar playing is just truly amazing. And this is a really good album if you like shred metal guitar. I'm just putting it in my good tier. It didn't quite make my very good because I'm personally just more into music with vocals. I do love some instrumental music, but for me to get into instrumental music, it needs to be really progressive, unique, technical, or boundary pushing, as well as memorable. You basically have to be Animals as leaders or on that level. This is still quite technical music, not quite on the level as Animals as leaders, but still pretty technical. And I don't think it's as unique or boundary pushing or memorable, unfortunately. So I'm putting it in my good tier for now as opposed to very good. But the guitar playing skill level here by Kiko Loureiro is beyond excellent. If you want to hear just some amazing guitar playing, then you definitely have to check this out. And that's it for my first impressions on these 9 albums that came out over the last week. What do you think of these albums? Let me know down below. And has there been anything else that came out recently in metal, rock, and prog that you think I'll enjoy? definitely let me know. I'm always interested in checking out new music recommendations. And stay tuned to my channel. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear my first impressions on other metal, rock, and prog albums that are coming out soon. In about a week's time, I'll be talking about releases from Devin Townsend, Atreyu, Entheos, Von Herzen Brothers, Better Lovers, Iotin, Garia, Fit for an Autopsy, Tears for Fears, and Kings of Mercia. Looking forward to checking all those albums out. So stay tuned and peace out.